No, man, you do you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you can give me a little bit of an overview, I suppose, of what it's like. I've done no research, mate. I've got to be honest.
Oh,
So
that's
if
all
you
right.
want to tell me a bit about the podcast or whatever,
No, that's totally fine. I'll do that in my intro. Okay. Well,
sweet.
everybody, welcome back to another episode of Canadian Talk. This is episode 109. Happy to be back. We have a comedian from the United Kingdom on the show today. Uh, he doesn't know anything about me. I don't know anything about him. So we're just gonna see what happens, and we're gonna start ripping. Uh, this is a podcast where we basically it's kind of like improv in a way, where and I see all podcasts are like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's just whatever comes to mind, you go for it. So Greg is a stand-up comedian from the UK. I came on to you because I saw a lot of your clips on Instagram, and you have some of the, as far as clip comedy goes, you have some of the most insane stuff I've seen on the internet. Maybe I don't go deep enough into the internet. Like I do just scratch the surface. Like I'm not one of those guys who's really deep into everything. But your delivery is very good. Like when I pick comedians for my show or pick people for my show, uh, I like to think I have a keen eye. And I tell you, man, like you remind me a lot of my other favorite comedian. His name's Ben Bankus. I don't know, he's a half Jewish guy here. He lives in Canada, and it's like this slow, methodical approach to a situation. It seems like you're like. I think why I have so much respect for it is because if I was on stage in front of large amounts of people, I'm always extremely nervous. And
Mm.
the way you approach it seems like you're not nervous at all. It seems like you have never left the stage, like you're just permanently on stage. How do you manage to well, anyway, thanks for coming on the show. And
No,
yeah, that's the intro. And
I'll
so,
take that. Yeah.
how long have you been doing this kind of a thing? How did you get so proficient at it?
Well, firstly, very kind. Thank you, mate. I would say, I mean, I've been a comedian for about 8 years now. Um, but prior to that, I'd found myself. I've been forced into public speaking as like part of my jobs and things that I had before I was a comedian. So yeah, I was never massively drawn to public speaking or like talking to groups of people or anything like that. That never appealed. It never seemed like something I'd be good at.
My nightmare.
And
It's
say again, sorry.
it's my nightmare. Public speaking, like it's pretty
Do
much
you are you a comedian yourself or?
absolutely yeah. But I have
Mm.
much less experience than you. Like it would be a
Oh, fair.
joke for me to even compare. You know what I'm saying? Like I am a performer at heart, but I'm an like I play sports. I'm an athlete rather than,
Mm.
but I still have that bug. And as I've moved away from sports as I get a little older, I'm trying to find a way to satisfy that. You know what I'm saying? I'm involved in the network. But
Yeah.
I'm not a front man in the sense that you'll go, oh hey, this guy's the best stand up comedian, go get him. I've more doubled down in podcasting. I find it to be more my speed,
Mm.
which it's torture that I do to myself in a sense, right? Because like, but I like to think that I'm strong enough that I can handle it, because it's like some people, they when they perform, they need that instant gratification. They need people's eyes on them. They like the attention. In podcasting, you don't really get that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'd say that's one of the biggest differences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it group sports you were doing, or were you like I said, like an athlete? Were you doing it on your own, or?
A little bit of both, but yeah, mostly hockey. I played
Yeah.
hockey. Yeah, as you know, I grew up in Canada, and
Mm.
I played hockey my whole life, and took that pretty seriously until I didn't. You know, as it goes for those kinds of things. But it was a great time. I
That's
think
fair.
it formed my personality in a lot of ways. I don't know though, but compared to a guy like you might think I'm a bit of a blockhead. Like I don't really know. I don't know enough about British people or people from where you're from. Like I've got so many questions, so I'm so curious. Like
Yeah.
yeah, well, so let's start with this. Like, what do people from the UK think of Canadian? Wait, so before we do that, you British, or are you Irish, or are you? And by the way, forgive me if I sound stupid when I say some of this stuff, because I literally don't understand the geography over there or the classifications or what is.
No, well, you've already nailed it by noticing a difference between British and Irish.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
Okay.
good. I'm British, basically. I'm standard British,
Okay.
as far as I know. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
And so, what do you guys? So you actual British people. What do you? I mean, my mom is British, obviously, and she is from there. She used to have an accent. She actually used to have a speech impediment, but yeah,
Same.
definitely a grumpy British woman is my mom. She is so grumpy that she just never even picked a man ever in her entire life. She was just like, "Fuck all men." Like that's how picky she is. She's like as British as it can be. Uh, so basically, yeah, you get what I'm saying by that, or no?
I think so. I'm not sure if you know where you came from, but other than that, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. Yo,
Found one.
We'll get
Found at least one, mate.
we'll get into that. Yeah, yeah. I just know half the equation on that one. So, what do British people think of like Canadian British people, if you could call me that? Like, do you guys? Is the general feeling over there towards that we are what? What do you guys think about us? Like, do you count us as British, or are we like runaways, or what exactly is it? What are the? Because do you guys consider yourself colonizers over there or not? Because that's what they consider us over here.
Right. I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, you still, you still got the king on your money and stuff, haven't you?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
have you?
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you're one of us, basically. That's probably
Okay.
how a lot of people say that. Look, not in a horrible way. I just don't think we think about you that often. As I'm
Okay.
sure you do. I think that whole bit of our past is like it's weird because obviously like Australia's still got a sort of a connection with our, they still have the flag, they're still in the Commonwealth, same, similar with Canada and stuff like that. I assume I don't know much about it, but like because we had it all once, whatever's left we don't show off about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think loads of people want to move to Canada all the time. Loads of British people see Canada and Australia as like the places to emigrate to. Because they feel safe and familiar, whilst also being slightly more exciting than Didcot or wherever, I imagine. But yeah, I suppose there's definitely a bit of a connection there, for lots of obvious reasons as well. But yeah, there's definitely a very different feeling than like America or somewhere like that. That's also like English speaking.
Yeah, for sure. Who knows that we might
And
end up becoming America pretty soon. Does that come across your news cycle over there, or have you heard about
did
that?
see something about you being rescued by
Yeah.
the United States Army,
Yeah,
which is
Trump
nice.
Trump thinks he needs to come and rescue us. So,
I think Elon Musk suggested that America invade England for its own sake the other day as well, which stuck in my craw a little.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
I know. It's
which
been crazy, man. I mean, did you see? Yeah, Trudeau, our prime minister here in Canada. Sorry to talk over you. Just resigned like 2 days
Yes.
ago. It's really popping off over here politically right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Do you talk much about politics? Oh my god, I'm sorry. I talked over you again. This is the worst part about video podcasting. I much prefer in person. I apologize.
All good.
Remember what you were going to say? I was just going to ask. Oh shit! Now I forgot it. Yeah, there it goes. It's gone.
Something about, do we talk much about politics over here? Did you
Yeah.
say?
Oh, I was going to say. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Are you much of a political comedian? Because like I see your clips and you have a bit of kind of like a villain. You look like a bit of a villain, in a Bond film or something like that. And I don't mean that in a pejorative. I'm just saying that like.
Yeah.
But when I watch your clips, though, you are really really blunt, and you go right at it. And I haven't seen all of them, but like some of the ones that I've seen, right? Like you've been attacked on stage by a heckler before, and you didn't back down at all. You fucking took the guy by the neck, and whatever else happened after that, I went off camera and I couldn't see the rest. You have lots of funny clips where you're like kind of attacking the trans, not attacking. That's not what I mean. Like navigating the situation of a trans person who's a bit too vocal at your show, and you go right at it. You're not scared at all.
Yeah, I suppose some of that probably comes from like there's a bit of a I don't know. I don't know what the phrase is. I don't want to say something lame like cognitive dissonance or whatever, but being British and showing off, they're very odd things to put together. And in my mind, anyway. So, like, that's part of it, anyway. Is like, you're not really supposed to be a show off if you're British, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's not generally, anyway. If you're British and sort of normal, as in, like, working class and not a theatre school or private, you know what I mean? Just
no, I 100% know what you mean.
British average person, you're not really supposed to be a show off.
Yeah, because we already took over the whole world, so you can't. Because we already took over the whole world, so I mean, we should probably just chill on the showing off, hey?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of decorum to it, though. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we'll have everything, we'll take everything, but
that's ultimately the decorum is ultimately.
We'll be polite about it.
Yeah, the decorum is ultimately the secret weapon, you know, because it's like people let us take them over in a sense because they're like, we don't like those guys. These guys over here, let's just let them come in. Let's see what they have to do. Before you know it, we're setting up their bank and we're like, hey, here's a loan, pay us back now.
Yeah, yeah. It's all based on manners and politeness, basically. Which saved us for a while, and yeah, then people got very rude, and now look at us. But yeah,
it seems like it's sliding kind of back in the other direction a little bit. Not to, but, you know.
How do you mean?
Well, I feel like the public perception right now of the monarchy it's still very high, and of the Britain and things like that, and what we've done in history. It's still relatively a good look. But it is sliding in the other direction a little bit, I would say, more of late.
Yeah, I think you'd struggle to find people bragging about our monarchy or our past outside of a obviously kind of what would be seen as a right-wing context. I suppose those two things, and I think that's just perception, but like. They tend to go together quite a little bit. Obviously, in recent years, there's been a lot of like, hey, we should probably look at what we've got up to and be a bit sorry about it, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those kind of things, I mean, that kind of stuff, to go back to your question about like whether or not I'm a political guy, I wouldn't see myself as that. So that issue there, for example, like even then I got a little bit like I don't want to come across either way on this because I've sort of any ubiquitous view of history is pretty boring, along with pretty much any other subject. Is the
history is so boring?
And again, yeah. I mean, it's not particularly funny. You know, to me anyway. The funniness is the awkwardness of the fact that, but you are British. You have benefited from those things. You can't just be all like hand wringy and ashamed of it all. It depends what someone brings to me. You know what I mean? If someone brings to me an attitude of like, you should be ashamed of yourself, my comedy instinct is going to be to subvert that. And if someone brings to me an attitude of Land of Hope and Glory, RAF, Battle of Britain, you know what I mean? Like, I'll probably join in with that in a way that I find funny. There's not going to be, I don't know, very rarely do I come down hard on one particular side of an argument because it's, you know, something that I feel incredibly passionate about.
Yeah.
That's the one aspect where I sometimes feel mildly fraudulent because I'm like, I only really care about highlighting the inconsistencies of everything. I don't really ever land on this is what I think, which is what a lot of comedy is literally this is what I think wrapped up in jokes. So what sort of, or that's what that you're sort of selling almost. Is like
that's probably my favorite part of comedy.
Yeah.
So before we get kind of more into those interesting things like that, we can, not saying you're not interesting, but like maybe we can backtrack a little bit and let's, I'm curious about kind of your come up a little bit. So, and a little bit more things about you. So like, where did you, when you started, like, can I get a little bit of idea of, so like, Greg's a young man, and he starts his career in like what jobs did you have, and then kind of how did you move towards performing? Like, did were you in theater or and stuff like that? And what are some jobs you've had?
Yeah. Well, all right. In terms of like the origin story,
Yeah, I want to hear the
I
origin
didn't
story
I
of the
didn't start
villain.
stand up till I was 29. So I'm 37 now. So I didn't start stand up till a lot later than a lot of people. Not as late as some, but
Yeah,
so 29 is fairly late, I would say. So there's been until then zero participation in any kind of performing art at all. I would say, other than enjoying it. As a sweeping statement, always been a comedy fan. Obviously,
yeah,
I was really into watching comedy and stand up, and we get a lot of panel shows in the UK, all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
I would rule that up always.
What's that show with
But I was,
what's that show with the carrot in a box? And like,
that might have been a part of like 8 out of 10 Cats or
yeah,
one of those ones.
yeah.
But yeah,
It's
yeah.
Jimmy Carr's show. Do you like Jimmy Carr
Yes.
much?
Yeah. I remember seeing his first stand-up special, like before he was famous, as it were. Back when comedy DVDs were a massive thing.
Yeah,
I used to get all the comedy DVD releases.
yeah,
I remember seeing his first special and being like, it was yeah. I remember thinking this is incredible because it was such a clearly defined character, and it was such a. Again, this is not a criticism, but it was back when he was very new. It was like watching a robot do stand up, basically. So it was clinical. It really was. I mean, he had almost no facial expressions. He had a very monotone voice, and he was delivering the jokes in a sort of like like a robotic kind of
yeah.
autistic-y kind of way.
Yeah, well, that's the way he deals
Which
with hecklers too. Even is he has a
Mhm.
robotic approach to how, but he deconstructs hecklers very well. Would you consider Jimmy Carr like more of a kind of a one-liner type guy, or do you think he does longer stories? I feel like he's more on the one-liner side of things when he.
That's certainly where it came from.
Yeah,
That's all he did, basically. I
yeah,
think. Um, yeah, that's what he was known for, anyway. I think it's taken him until fairly recently. I think I've heard him say that he's far more interested in doing long form stuff now, or starting to do that. But yeah, he's very much a one-liner guy. I can't remember, but I think he said he writes 3,000 jokes a year or something at one point
wow,
in order to get his shows. And I don't know what the gag rate of his shows are, but over an hour and 10 minutes or whatever his specials are, I would
the
imagine
gag
there's
rate.
300
By that
jokes.
is that are you talking like laughs per minute kind of thing? Is that what you mean by gag rate?
No, just jokes, just individual
Oh,
self-contained
jokes
jokes.
counting. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, he just goes from one to the next. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I've not seen all of his stuff, but again, when I was mostly watching his specials and stuff, was early days stuff. It was very much joke to joke to joke. Very rarely would you need a through line or anything to get you from one to another.
for sure.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's his thing. Is clinical joke writing, I think.
Yeah, so you're a fan and you start to like comedy a lot, and then
Mhm.
what gets you into it? What gets you into thinking I
Um,
can do that?
it was a slow process, I suppose. So there's like the real early days of like standard comedian, got ignored a lot as a child, got funny to make some friends. That was all in the background, and that was something that was like consistent through my life. Was like in small groups of friends, or meeting new people or whatever. Funniness was my way of making that like work for me, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
That was the thing I had to offer. I felt like I should have something of value about me,
Yeah,
and that's it. So I would do that, and that was mostly like self-deprecation kind of stuff back in the day. That's what I used to do. Again, just to the people around me, to try and ingratiate myself.
yeah,
And then and then I suppose getting into comedy, lots of random jobs and stuff that started to push me towards like training people. I used to have to train people a lot. So I worked at like a call center. I worked for a cruise ship So I used to live on cruise ships. That was my last proper job before I came back. But I had to train groups of people basically and run a training class. So you'd have 30, 40 people sat there being paid to listen to you, which is obviously easier.
You kind of had jobs in communication sort of thing, right? Because you know, we're talking call centers, we're talking training people to be employees of some sort. So a lot of communication was involved in your career even before you started doing what you do now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And like, I suppose, yeah, with a heavy emphasis on that, on like, I suppose on some level, it's turning what should be a very natural thing into an artificial thing, so it works in a corporate setting. Like customer servicey stuff or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I think that probably resonated with me because it's hard work for me.
Yeah.
Communicating.
I feel incredibly suffocated in a corporate setting. I don't know how it feels to you, but I really, really don't like the modern corporate work environment, things like that. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I was never a huge fan in general. After a while, I could get real comfortable in it because I think the rules are clearly defined, the boundaries are clear. You know what I mean? Your role is clear. That kind of thing you can relax into a bit if you're built like me and a bit tismy probably. But like in terms of like having a boss and having to adhere to all the things, I'm extremely glad I don't have all of those things to worry about anymore.
Yeah.
Because all of the arbitrariness of it, whilst the having clearly defined boundaries and stuff is simple, it becomes arbitrary after a while, and then that becomes a problem for me anyway.
For sure. Yeah, I get like PTSD to my working days a lot. Have you? Because even with your name last name is Winfield. One of my worst managers I ever had when I was working as an engineer, his name was Linfield. His first name was Lynn and his last name was Field. So it's like I hear your name and I'm already getting PTSD to when I worked. So have you found a way to make comedy be your main source of income yet? Or are you still working with multiple things?
No, I'm very lucky. I've been a full-time comedian, I suppose, professional comedian for like 2.5 years now.
Amazing.
Which is a bit of luck and a lot of a lot of groundwork.
What do you think was lucky about it?
I think I was lucky where I was. So I'm in a city. I'm in Bristol in the UK. So we had, when I started comedy, there was sort of 3 or 4 gigs, 2 of which were any good. But comedy kind of got really big after I started. I claim no responsibility for that, just coincidentally, obviously.
Okay.
So there was lots more gigs. There was lots of opportunity for stage time in Bristol, basically. So it wasn't like trying to start in London where there's 1,000 horrible gigs that no one's going to be at, and it's hard, you know. So it was easy enough anyway. After the first sort of 6-8 months, a year, or whatever, to get a lot of stage time, so I can gig most nights of the week and that kind of thing straight out of the gate.
Because quick tangent question would be because like a lot of the interactions I've had, let's say, has been with mostly Irish guys because I'm a structural engineer. I work in kind of construction and stuff. So there's a lot of Irish guys that come over and work construction and things like that over here, and they're lost your video. There you go.
Sorry.
We're back. No problem. So a lot of Irish guys kind of come over here, and that's been a lot of my interaction. And their opinions are always like it's expensive. So like if you want to live in the UK, it's expensive. They say that there's not that much work, kind of thing, for them anyway. I mean, I don't know, but is that a true thing? Like, is it hard to just get by around over there? Because like that's why I'm curious that you've been able to so quickly make it a regular thing. Like,
I think I'll be honest. Probably the largest factor that enables me to do comedy for a living is I have almost no life. Like I've got no kids. I've got no wife. I've got no partner. I've got a very cheap, simple life. with not a lot of variance to it.
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
So yeah, I mean, if I had a child or something, there'd be almost no chance that I'd have ever been able to have been obviously. So yeah, that's a big factor in it for me. Also, I suppose, again, for me, starting a little bit later may have helped a bit because I had a little bit more about me, and you know, I didn't have like loads of savings or anything like that. I was living off. I was working for the first 5 years of being a comedian at the same time. And yeah, I think a lot of it is because I MC a lot as well. So
yeah,
because I do because I can do crowd work and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I get booked MC, which means I can gig a third to 50% more immediately. Because you can MC the same club repeatedly. I don't use material really when I'm MCing and things like that, so I can get booked lots relatively locally. So yeah, without that, without having no expenses, I wouldn't be a comedian now.
I have to say, my first comment that comes to mind on that is like, I don't think it's a bad thing coming into it so late. Obviously, I myself did the same thing because I feel like it allows you more time to kind of form a personality and be in the real world for a little while before you come over. And it kind of, I think it shows an element of reflection and you considered things before you're like, okay, let's go and ruin my life and become a comedian. And like I was the same way. And, because there's those people that they jump right on stage when they're 19, 21, and their whole personality, all they are is a stage animal. You know what I'm saying? They don't have any other personality. There's no more substance to them than that. And I've interviewed tons of people that I would say have that flaw in their way. So I would say that's probably a good thing.
I think so. Yeah, I don't think. I think sometimes I look at it like, I wish I'd started 10 years earlier and then I'd be 10 years further ahead. But I don't think it works like that. I think, yeah, for some people, if you're a natural performer or whatever and you're drawn to the stage or I mean, I can't imagine a version of myself when I was 17, 18 that would even think that being a stand-up comedian was an option for me. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't have seemed like a real thing. And it wouldn't have been, you know what I mean? I was in Devon. I mean, I'd have had to have done so many things that would have been so far outside of my ability to do. I'd have had to presumably like move to London or somewhere. And it never seemed like a real option to me. It took me till 29 to even consider that it was a possibility and just go to open mics.
Yeah, you know? Devon. So Devon, I assume that's like the town that you grew up in Bristol. I also saw, just quickly to bring it to some of your topics as well, I saw that you have actually been in a film called Devon, right? I saw that on your media.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
It's not out yet. I'm sure it'll be out soon.
Okay, cool. Just like your special, right? Which is coming soon also.
Exactly that. Yes. Yeah. It's when did we do that? Back in November. It's a short film by an amazing guy called John Panton, I believe. And very oddly, I was doing a gig in Exeter. So Devon is a county in the UK, in the southwest. It's kind of a rural county, which is where I grew up. Sort of, fields and farmers and that kind of thing is the general perception.
Okay.
And I was doing a gig back there. So Bristol is a slightly larger city, a little bit outside of Devon. So I was doing a gig back there in Exeter, which is like the nearest big city to where I was from. And in my old film studies from college, when you're about 16, 17, you go to like a college, I suppose, in the UK. And I went there and I did film studies as part of that. And my old film studies lecturer was there, and he makes films now. And we got chatting, and I ended up being in his film, which was nice.
Oh wow! So you were like the class favorite then. Your film teacher ended up putting you in a film.
Yeah, I was very far away from that. I don't think I probably said about 3 words in 2 years to him. I was a very strange kid. I'm sure. Like, in some circumstances, I was very confident and was like, "Let's be funny," and in other ones, I was like almost entirely silent. He was one of the ones where I was silent, and I think because I loved films. You know, what I mean, that was sort of my thing. Was sitting and watching films on my own. That was my comfort level when I was growing up. So actually getting to go to a film studies class and like have a guy who really knows his stuff was super intimidating to me. So I was always really intimidated by him. I think, even though he's a lovely man. So yeah, it was a sort of 10-year gap, and then I sort of came back in front of him as a comedian, which I can't imagine he would have thought would have been a thing he'd have seen. And then we got chatting, and I got to go and do that, which was awesome. I mean, I've never really described myself as an actor at all, but it was fun to do. I've done a couple of little things like that.
Cool.
It's something I'd like to be good at. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it is a really cool skill. It's weird. Acting is kind of everything, you know. There's that cliche of like the guy in acting class who goes, "Acting is life," you know. But in a sense, it kind of is.
Yeah, I think that's what's hard about it, is because you kind of realize, oh, I'm doing this all the time.
Exactly.
If you're me, anyway, I feel very much like everything has an element of this is a bit construed as a bit, you know.
And comedy really trains that. Comedy really trains that, hey, and it's kind of like, if you could think of like the connection between the people who are like kind of on this side, the filmmakers, and it kind of, the comedian is the connection from that class over to the other class. You know, it's kind of, I see the comedian as kind of a connection to that. So I'm curious if you had to give me like the Netflix sentence, right? Like if your film was on Netflix and it had a sentence under it of describing what the short film was about, like what you're able to say about what it's about, what would that sentence be?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if I would be able to do it. I've got to be honest, it's a bit out there in terms of the plot and things. It's sort of got a sci-fi edge to it, I suppose, in terms of it. I think it's hard. There's a sort of an allegory about Britishness in the current state that it is. That's probably about as much as I would want to say about it. I've not seen the edit of it.
Love that.
I have to be honest, I barely remember doing it. I didn't sleep at all the night before because I was, it's a higher blur to me.
I'm very interested because I'm so curious about how those things are connected. You know, like the sci-fi aspect of it. I can't help but wonder, like, we're talking about a rural area, we're talking about a prairie region of the UK, and then somehow there's a sci-fi aspect. I'm very curious what, and then you said it's connected to Britishness. I'm so very curious about the connection, but I guess we can't get into it too much, eh? So not much sleep.
I wouldn't want to ruin it, or do it a service, because it's the one thing you realize when you do like a film or like a telly thing or anything like that, you are surrounded by people with real genuine talent. Yeah. Like, everyone knows exactly what their job is and they're really good at it. And they all work together, and they've all got this sort of amazing confidence that I think comes from having a real genuine practical skill and a role to play in a group environment. Yeah. Which you do not get if you're a stand-up. Like, the reason why I really like stand-up so much is because I get to do it on my own.
Yeah. And I think what crafts the best stand-ups is exactly what you're saying, that kind of that imposter syndrome where you don't even know what your skill is yet or ever. But that is in itself the skill, because it's what keeps you constantly, you know, writing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And that need to be like, the need to feel like I am supposed to be doing this. You lose that in between laughs, almost, that feeling. So like, I need that back all the time. Yeah, I need to do stand up very often. Personally, some people, I don't like having a day off. I do it every single day if I can.
Absolutely. I've heard it described as less of like a hobby or a profession and more of like an addiction. That's how I feel about it because like I have a huge propensity towards addiction, and that's why I find that I'm like so drawn to it. I One thing I always say about it is I kind of feel like because growing up, whether you have confidence or not, like what you said, I naturally label a lot of my certain character traits that I have. I put them into like a negative box, whether they be competitiveness or confidence or whatever. These more kind of aggressive character traits in a way, and I see comedy as a way to kind of flip those, where you can sort of try to use your negative impulses in a positive way to not just benefit you. It does benefit you for sure, but like it benefits others too. I think that's another part of what I really like about it. And sorry, there wasn't really a question in there. I'm just rambling now,
No,
like I do.
no. I mean, I'm forever looking for justifications about why it's okay that I do what I
Yeah, yeah,
do. Because sometimes you're like for my clips, for example, like in isolation, I put out a minute or 90 seconds of something I've done, which will be the first time anyone ever has seen or heard of me if they see it at all.
yeah,
And I think, Christ, I wonder what it is they think based on that thing on its own.
for sure.
Which is why I like having all of my clips together, and I know that there is a bit of a theme. Like I quite like the fact you described me as like a villain or something, because I always wonder what it is that people see in them.
For sure.
And I think that's I'm happy with that as a description to a certain extent.
Yeah, yeah. Well, by the
But
way,
then
if I
you
could just
wonder what people think.
for sure, if I could just say a quick tidbit, yeah, it would be like, yeah, in the isolation of it as a clip, it's I you have I was one of my point there was just purely aesthetically when I talked about the villain thing, but to do with your content as well. But in terms of the podcasting, right, just to give a little bit of the other side of it, that's where I feel like it adds a little bit of security in that way because there's a bit of a safety in numbers aspect to it because like my things are so dense. There's so much there that it's I have a little bit more control over that thing where people judge you based on one thing. Even though I end up still running into the same problem where a lot of the viewers that come, they'll come and click on a podcast for a few minutes and that's all they'll get, and then there's their impression of me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But there's less power for them to attack you as this is what you put out as like this is your one. No, it's everything. And if you didn't have the time to go watch it all, then you're the idiot. You know what I'm saying?
I do, yeah, I do. And yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one to manage because like there's the gigs, which is one experience, and then there's the gig on the internet. Because I don't think there's much way there's for me anyway. There's no real way around the fact that I need some sort of online presence and following in order to do what I want to do. I don't see any way around that anyway.
Yeah, you have to appeal to the largest number of people.
Yeah, exactly. It just makes it's what everything comes down to at the end of the day. Especially here, I don't know if it's the same over there, but like,
there's nobody over here. It's just tundra and snow. So that's part of the problem with connecting over here. You know, it's all internet. There isn't much of gigs at all. Any good comedian from here ends up leaving Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that's where we're lucky here. That's the other good thing about the UK, I suppose, is if you want to be a comic like on the road, is what people like to say. Which sounds a bit silly when you say it in the UK because it's 700 miles is about as far as you can get from anywhere else ever.
Yeah, so small.
So like,
700 miles doesn't even get you across my province. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of nothing to most people. I like, when you listen to like American comics talk about flying across states to gigs for $100 or whatever, we don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. But then I think a lot of UK comics are international in their mindset because of that as well. So they spend a lot of time in Europe or
fair enough. So
in Australia.
I'm curious. I want to do a couple more kind of more concrete questions. Like, so what is a film that you really like, if you had to pick a favorite or whatever.
Cool. I always say Con Air when people ask me what my favorite film is.
Nick Cage.
Yeah.
I like Nick Cage. It's weird how
I
he
think
went through he went through a phase where everybody hated him. I have no idea why, but I think he's making a comeback, kind of.
Yes, yeah, he's the most polarizing
Yeah.
of the sort of well-known actors, I would say, in terms of whether or not people think he's an insane person or a genius.
He's got a few big movies coming up. Yeah, I forget which new one he's in coming up, but yeah. What is it? I have to look it up.
Exciting.
Sorry, I don't have my producer here today to look things up for me, but it's too early in the morning. Do you know that it's like 6 a.m. here?
Oh, God, sorry. Yes.
No, it's okay. I wake up at 5 every day. It's all right. It's all right.
Is it? Mm-hmm. Why on earth would you do that? Is that like a Mark Wahlberg thing or a job thing?
I don't know. You can call it what you want. I can't. I don't like to sleep that long. I go to bed early and wake up early.
Fair play.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So back, like, so your favorite film. What about your favorite kind of stand-up comedians? What do you got there?
I suppose my guy's Norm Macdonald. So yeah, whenever anyone asks my favorite guy is, it's always Norm.
I assume you've seen his new special there, the one that right before he passed, where he shot it just on his laptop. Have you seen that one?
Yes, the Nothing Special one.
Yeah,
I've seen it all except for the last. This is really lame. I've seen it all except for the last 20 minutes because it's the last thing, and I refuse to have watched it yet.
Yeah,
so one day I'll finish it off. But
yeah, he's an amazing guy, truly. I mean, and like I say, I think I see a lot of parallels between him and you, especially in terms of delivery and that calm stage presence. I think it's an amazing thing. Like, well, the sacrifice that the long-term comedian makes is a huge thing. And then you think about Norm Macdonald, and somehow he managed to take it to some other level. Aside from his entire career, like, I mean, you watch the way that, if you watch any Tonight Show interview with him or anything like that, they described him as incoherent. Like, that was some of the buzzwords they would use to describe him. And he would just allow that kind of a thing, even though the reality of it is he's the opposite of that. And you know, to not tell anybody that you have cancer because of the way it might affect that, and to not tell anybody right till the very end, I think is an incredible thing. Like, what?
I think he's in the very truest sense of the word, I think he's an extraordinary person. Yeah. I can't think of any. Well, there's certainly no comic like him. I can't think of any people like him. I think I'll get carried away with it all, but I think he's a real genuine genius. And I think that's where a lot of the magnetism and the misunderstanding comes from, because he's not operating from a place that a lot of people will resonate with at all. And it'll be very
absolutely.
But he's one of the few people that can, I suppose, have that experience of life where I think honestly it'd be extremely off-putting to a lot of people, but not let that like break him, or like, you know, make him not want to, like, obviously everyone's heard all of this. If anyone likes Norm, they know everything about him. That's what I've learned. But I suppose what I like about him personally is that some of it is what he's capable of is so far away from what I'm capable of, in terms of like how just the things he can do. Obviously that's the case, but his instincts are so different to mine in terms of what he's willing to go through.
Yeah, the delay. I feel like what you're alluding to, sorry to interrupt, but I feel like what you're alluding to is a bit of a, in a sense, why I like him so much is I see him as kind of like the first real podcast comedian, even though he wasn't the first one to start a podcast, nothing like that. But in a sense, he's willing to delay that gratification of a joke so much and push it so far. Like, there was this one time I was at this DUI course. I don't know. Well, I don't know what the blood alcohol level is over there for driving for you guys, but over here it's insanely low. Like if you can get in trouble for like just having a beer and then going driving or whatever. So it's like point oh, real low. I was at a course for that, and my teacher wanted to. Well, he wanted to. He's like, "Oh, tell a joke," in the class because he found out what I do, and I wanted to punish. I wanted to punish all of them. So I told them Norm Macdonald's. Like, of course, I would think of a Norm Macdonald joke to tell at that point, and I told them his moth joke or whatever. I don't know if you know it right off the cuff, but it's
I do, yeah.
yeah, that I told that joke, and I made it go for like 7 minutes, and dude, it was funny. It was funny, but
I bet.
Yeah. By the way, I do want to mention I'm not a proponent of drinking and driving. I'm just saying that, you know, but I will say I do have an opinion though that I think that there should be some sort of a subcategory where you can get something on your license where you can have a couple pints, like, and be at maybe a 0.04, like you get yourself to 0.04, and then you can do a driving test and show that you can still operate a motor vehicle just fine. And then it gets you like, okay, so this guy's allowed to be, because there's like multiple limits for it or whatever. And the lower limit one where it's not, you don't get a DUI, it's just, you got to pay a fine. I feel like there should be a subcategory of training where you cannot get that fine, pay the course fee one time, show that you've done the training, and then that you're adequate.
Well, Trudeau's out, so there's an opportunity for all of this. So make your case, mate, to whoever the new guy.
Bring in some drinking and driving. Yeah.
It's one of I don't know if it's the same over there, but I suppose drink driving is one of the things that's had the most effective PR campaign here. Like, people would be so ashamed to be caught drink driving now.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, it was not a thing at all.
30 years ago. Yeah.
Barely. It was nothing.
And there's lots of places here that it's still legal.
In the UK, what the attitude really is towards it.
Yeah. Like there's states over here in the US and areas in Canada where it's still legal to drink and drive.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice.
I suppose it would be because I don't know how you would get through the day, like, or see anyone,
Yeah.
If you're not going to be able to walk to the pub in Canada and walk home, I imagine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge cab industry over here, maybe. I don't know. Uber. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I don't do it, obviously.
Never. You never would. You're a professional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not fun enough as well. Drink driving is something for fun people. It's not for me.
So you don't consider yourself a fun guy to be around, or what?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, no, not massively. I've got to be honest. Not anymore. I think if you're going to have to be around me, then I'll try and make it fun for you. I'll try and do that. But in terms of like my life is it's all based on working in the evenings. So that's the social time that most other people have.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm out and about. I do my thing, and then usually my main priority is eating. Once the gig is finished, once I'm done with the gigs, then my main priority is having my dinner.
Yeah. You're a big foodie, or what? What's your favorite?
No, I'm just bad at eating before gigs.
So is it
I can do it after a few hours, and then after the gig, once the adrenaline's gone or whatever, I don't know why I'm just like ravenously hungry. That's my only problem.
Yeah, I've seen that too. The same thing happens to me. So is it kind of seen as like a bad thing to as a British comedian to like an American comedian? Is other comedians that you work with over there, do they look down on you for that?
I would hope not. I mean, I don't think so. Like, there's definitely there's definitely different schools of thought on it, and there's different attitudes towards these things. But I think comedy is inevitably, stand-up comedy anyway, if you ask people to list their top, the comedians that they respect the most or whatever, it's inevitable that you're going to have loads of Americans in there, I think, just because of the scale at which they're operating compared to a lot of the comics in the UK.
Okay.
Also, I think a lot of them, to us anyway, just appear a lot cooler.
Okay.
Like a lot of our big comedians, you wouldn't necessarily, I'm not having a go, but you wouldn't necessarily describe them as cool.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think
Fair
if
enough.
you're like a younger comic,
Yeah.
wanting to be into comedy,
Yeah.
our biggest comedians fill stadiums, but like they're Michael McIntyre, Jimmy Carr, things like that. They're obviously have huge audiences and massive success, but they wouldn't necessarily go into like the same category as Bill Burr in terms of like how they're perceived. So yeah, I think a lot of if you're looking at big stuff anyway, you do look at America. There's incredible British comics doing amazing things, but they're just it's not filling stadiums or
I feel like it might also have something to do with the culture in a way. I feel like I'm just going to throw something out there of what I feel like, but it may not be accurate. Because like the comedians over here are quite respected. They have a pretty big cultural effect, especially when they make those really good things. They point out good things like what you said with pointing out inconsistencies. They can have huge cultural effects, and that's what can make them come off cooler. I feel like where you're from, there's more of the comedian is a clown kind of thing, and they don't have as much of a cultural impact with the things they say. I feel like it might be some sort of a difference like that.
Very possibly. I think there's a huge tradition of like club comedy and things like that in Britain, and I think a lot of, I suppose it's difficult to know, but speaking very generally, I suppose a lot of the public, their interaction with comedy is what they see on the telly, and what you get on the telly here in terms of stand-up is very limited and specific. So there's like one show, I suppose, where you would see conventional stand-up comedy being done, and that's the point of the show.
Yep.
And it used to be very popular, like Live at the Apollo, I suppose it's called, and it's comedians doing 10 minutes in like a compilation format with like a very famous host or whatever, usually. And that used to be massive, waned a little bit in terms of how many people really watch it, along with most terrestrial telly at the same time, I suppose. And the other things is panel shows, so they see comedians sat down doing 8 out of 10 cats and the stuff that you probably get over in Canada as well. And other than that, you don't. That's sort of your experience of what stand-up comedians are. So you have to go and see it live, really, in the UK to get an idea of what stand-up comedy is really like, I suppose.
For sure.
And a lot of people do that, which is very nice. So I think there is a lot of live stand-up in the UK. I think anyway, there's lots going on.
So do you have a favorite female comedian, or do you think they should just stay in the kitchen?
Excellent question, and well phrased. Oh God, I should have an answer to this. Really
I knew it. I got you.
No, I do. I was thinking of again. I was automatically going to give you American answers to it, I suppose, is what was going to happen there.
Well, I would appreciate if you'd say one that I would know, like more or less. But if you have a favorite over there, you go right ahead.
I mean, if
you have one that you have a crush on and you want to just like.
I'll put Joan Rivers in all those categories. Old school Roseanne as well. I remember seeing some of Roseanne's early stand-up many, many years ago, and I really liked that. And then I think I've seen some of Nikki Glazer's stuff even more recently. I suppose that's good as well. But that's all, like I said, it's all American stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's loads of great ones that I know that is not going to translate. But yeah, I suppose yeah. I won't keep going, but obviously I could.
Fair enough. Have you heard of? Do you know who Tom Segura is?
I do know who he is. Yeah.
His wife Christina? Have you ever seen much of Christina Pazitsky?
I have actually. Yes, I've seen some of her stuff. Yeah.
I find she's really good. A newer, younger one, Jordan Jensen. Do you know Jordan Jensen?
That's a great shout. Yes, I do actually. Yeah.
I find her to be incredible. Yeah. If I could give you like a a little thing to watch, it would simply be. Have you heard of Stand Up on the Spot with Jeremiah Watkins? It's a show that's pretty popular on YouTube right now, where they do stand up purely with suggestions from the audience, and they go up with no prepared material. Have you seen that show?
I know of it. Yeah, I've seen a bit of it.
Yeah,
but yeah,
Jordan.
I'll look it up for sure.
Yeah, Jordan just went on that show, and it is a thing of beauty, I will say. And he's now probably one of my favorites, just because how she did on that show. It was quite something.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'll definitely look that. Yeah,
she killed me.
Yes.
So what's the grand plan for Greg Winfield? Like, is that are you on the trajectory you want to be, or?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I feel incredibly lucky to be where I am at the moment in a lot of ways. Like, this was my dream when I started stand up. Was like, I just want to be able to be a stand up comedian and feel like I am one, and have it be my job. So I'm happy with that. My next thing, I suppose, is very generally, I just want to sell tickets under my own name more, if you know what I mean. So I want to have shows that are my shows, which I'm starting to do this year. We'll see how that goes.
Headliner. Yeah, you want to be the headliner more. Do you think you'll ever move?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's tour shows, I suppose, what I mean. So, like, I'm lucky I get to be a headline act, I suppose, a bit around the place. But, like, that's people going to comedy clubs because they're going to the comedy club, and I happen to be the headliner. I suppose what I'm aiming for is for people to be like, I want to go and see that guy, and there to be a show in a venue somewhere where it's coming to see me specifically.
Okay, two questions for you. So what happened? So first one's kind of like just topical, and the second one is more general. But like, what happened? So when you got attacked on stage, is that the only time that's happened?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple, I suppose, along the way where something similar,
but nothing that bad.
But it's no one's ever. I've never had to actually physically take someone out of somewhere.
Yeah. So what happened? So just real quickly, so like the aftermath of that, as you went out, what happened afterwards? Did you kind of just shove him out the door and then that was the end of it, or what happened?
Yeah, like pretty much. So yeah, he went out the door, and then there's a bit of making sure he's not going to come back in.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't. So I went back in and sort of let the crowd know what was happening. And then there was
the show.
Say again.
You continued the show after that?
Oh yeah. So I had to bring an act on, so there was one more act that night. I was emceeing that gig, so I had to bring the last act on. So I went back in and sort of checked with them. I was like, mate, how do you want to play this? Do you want to give it 5 minutes? Do you want to come on now? What do you want me to do? Basically, I was like, "Oh, come on, let's get it done." So yeah, you can.
Definitely revved up the crowd for that guy. So yeah,
I felt bad for the fella. I gotta be honest, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, that. But yeah.
Yeah. So to bring it back to what you said about how you want to sell tickets and things like that, I think you're doing it now because you're on my show and that kind of a thing. But I haven't personally been able to find a lot of podcasts that you've been on. If you've ever been on any others, I haven't quite been able to find them yet. But like, I think that because once people see you on stage and they decide that guy's my guy, he thinks like how I want to have the person that I watch think. I feel like the next key after that is having lots of content on the internet, not necessarily just clips that they come to. And that's kind of where podcasts come in a way, because they can watch you regularly. They can, more invest in your story and littler things, comedy about your family or whatever, about your day to day, where you can farm a lot more easy, low hanging fruit with jokes on podcasts. Honestly, I'm curious why you've never started have you started your own podcast?
No, never properly. No. And it's something I would consider, definitely. But it's in terms of like the time investment and all that kind of thing. It's something that someone else would have to make for me because it's a bit outside of my expertise, like the production of it all.
For sure.
But I would certainly consider it. And yeah, not to put too fine a point, but when you asked me, I was like, yeah, it's obviously a massive part of being a comedian now. Almost is making yourself more
Lovable.
and more accessible to the people. You know what I mean, and having those different things. So yeah,
You've got to be lovable. Yeah. Like, and I love how
yeah,
you just used one of my favorite phrases, not to put too fine a point on it. That's such a British phrase. That's funny.
You're not to put too fine a point on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not to put too fine a point on it.
Not to come down on it. Yeah, not to commit too much to anything ever.
Yeah.
I suppose what I should start every sentence with. The on-stage version of me is the one most happy to make incredibly definitive statements.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
That's where you feel safest. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, because that's where you feel safest to kind of say your stuff, because you feel protected by the idea that when you're up there, you're doing comedy, so you think that people should take it lightly. Yeah. Is that what you're getting at?
To a certain extent, yeah. Like, I think a lot of it is, again, it's got a very clear purpose. Again, that's one of the things I liked about Norm so much, is that his philosophy seems to, a lot of it anyway, seem to be comedy does, and at the end of the day, have a singular purpose, and it does have to be funny. It doesn't have to be funny to everyone. It doesn't, you know what I mean? But it has. That's what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to be funny. So I like operating from that point of view. And I think it makes me fairly insufferable, I imagine, to some of the people around me, usually, because I really genuinely struggle to take serious things seriously, because my instinct is always it's pretty inverse. The more serious it is, the faster I want to say something funny about it, because I can't do. I'm incapable of doing it the normal way, I think.
But yet when you're in a corporate environment, which is strange, right? Because you say that. Because for me, I am the opposite of that, where I'm the same way, but like I apply it to the job environment too. And I have a tough time staying in the constraints, but then you say that you can stay in those constraints well, so you can put on both hats, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Weirdly, one feels like work and the other one feels less like it. And that's the one, my job. So yeah, I'm weirdly, I don't know, relaxed is not the right word. But when I'm on stage, I suppose, this is lame, but that is where I'm like, oh, this is the easiest version of who I am. It's the easiest to be the stage version of me is my favorite one, I think, in a lot of ways.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on my show today. I hope you had a good time. I hope this was what you wanted it to be. But
yeah, it was great. Yeah,
I really appreciate you coming on the show, taking a little bit of your time to give the Canadians a little bit to digest from you. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Us runaway colonizers. We still like you guys. We didn't run away because we hate you.
No, hey, we appreciate everything you do out there, whatever the fuck it is. You keep doing it. Yeah. And in the wars to come, we can count on your support, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's everybody. That's Greg Winfield. Make sure you go check out his Instagram at Greg_Winfield. And he's got a YouTube page. Go follow him there. Check out his film coming out, short film, Devin. And Devin is spelled two different ways. The first one with an I, the second one with an O. That should be coming out in the near future. So go check that out. And his special will be coming out hopefully pretty soon on the YouTubes. So go find that, everybody. And thanks a lot, Greg.
All right, no, absolute pleasure.
Okay. Yeah, and that's Canadian Talk. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no worries. I was going to say, if people were interested in seeing me live, I've got a few initial tour dates for this year on my website. So gregwinfield.co.uk. If you happen to be in one of 4 cities in the UK.
Okay. We'll go to that website and go get those tickets, guys. And that's Canadian Talk. All right.
Thank you very much. Cheers,
okay,
Stephan.
Cool. Please go subscribe to our YouTube page, Canadian Talk with Stephan Podcast. We need you down there. Also, we have a website, stephanjackson.ca, where you'll find the audio versions, As well, you can email us if you got a question or anything you want to see us talk about. CanadianTalkWithStephan@gmail.com.